We are living in incredibly strange times. Industries are shifting, politics are unstable, the people are restless, and video games are getting caught in the middle of it. And while some people are going to say there are bigger things to worry about, this is one of the things that I care about the most. And anytime things start to get shaky, it is the perfect moment for a power grab. And right now, everybody wants control of video games. You have politicians that are blaming them for violence. You have activist groups that are actively trying to censor or sanitize them. You have these corporations that are weaponizing patents to suppress their competition and funnel their users straight to them and to nobody else. These guys, none of them agree on anything, but they do agree on one thing, and that's that games don't belong to you. This is supposed to be our hobby. This is supposed to be for our enjoyment, but there are far too many groups that have got it in their mind to weaponize our hobbies against us for their own devices, whether that's greed, politics, or social control. Games have stopped being about creativity and expression and instead have become a battlegrounds for things and agendas that have largely nothing to do with the reason why we play games in the first place. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about that power grab. I want to talk about Nintendo's recent patents and the war that's going to start. I want to talk about the ensuing suppression from activists and politicians and how no matter what these guys do, this train ain't gonna stop. But before that, a word from today's sponsor. As you guys might know, I've been hitting the gym 6 months in and not a day wasted, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without today's sponsor, Raycon. Remember back to school shopping as a kid, new notebooks, new shoes, new routines? It always felt like a reset. And I might not be in school anymore, but I love that feeling of a fresh start. And for me, Raycon's Everyday Earbuds Classic has become a part of that reset. I use these every single day when I go to the gym, and they're one of the very few earbuds that actually fit in my ears and don't fall out mid-workout. They've got active noise cancellation so I can zone in, or awareness mode so when I'm outside I can actually hear what's going on around me, multi-point connectivity to make it easier to swap out between my phone and my laptop without missing a beat. Battery life 32 hours with the case. Quick charge 10 minutes will give you 90 minutes of playtime, and I've got mine in the Purple Clouds case showing off my more sensitive side. Raycon's quality rivals big audio brands, but at half the price. Over 3 million people are already in love with them, and with a 30-day happiness guarantee, there's no risk in trying them out. So if you're getting back into a routine this fall, go to buyraycon.com/legendary drops to get 20% off site-wide. That's buyraycon.com/legendary drops. This industry just feels like it's in a constant state of whiplash. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. We have companies that are jacking up prices, carving up more content, and shipping broken games, but then out of nowhere, we're getting these moments of just pure joy and creativity. Another factory-stamped Call of Duty, but then we get a Helldivers 2. Dragon Age bends itself into the Veilguard, but then we get Expedition 33. Nintendo is charging $80 for its games, while Team Cherry drops Silksong for only $20. Sometimes it's even happening in the exact same game. Borderlands 4 might be the best game in the series, but its reputation is tanked by an ego-drunk CEO and technical issues that should have never made it past QA. Everything in this industry feels like it's boom or bust, not just for publishers, but for us players too. And that constant whiplash is creating a lot of uncertainty, and that uncertainty is breeding anxiety. And AAA studios feel it, the customers feel it, but ironically, that anxiety has been a gift for these indie studios, because titles like Palworld, Enshrouded, Balatro, Expedition 33, and Silksong, they have dominated the last 2 years because, well, they're offering something that AAA rarely does anymore. Relief. Lower prices, lower commitment, less pressure on performance and hardware, and above all, focus. Indie games are built around just delivering one sharp, enjoyable experience. Meanwhile, these AAA studios have spread themselves thin, and they're going crazy. And that's the heart of their problem, even though they don't see it. Instead of listening to their players or learning from their competition, these companies have only continued to double down on some of the worst decisions they possibly could. They're out of touch, they're talent starved, and they're bleeding customers to these leaner studios that actually know what people want. But rather than fixing the cracks, they're just reaching for their greedier tools. They're pulling for lawsuits, patents, lockouts. It's not about making better games, it's about building higher walls, which brings us straight to Nintendo and their latest attempt to patent one of the most basic mechanics in the history of gaming. Reported on by GamesFray, a publication that specializes in regulatory issues in the games industry, in an article titled "Last Week, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company received a U.S. patent on summoning a character and letting it fight another." In it, the writer Florian Mueller details 2 recently approved patents from Nintendo that were granted to them by the U.S. Patent Office, Patent 387 and 397, where 387 was the one that covers interactable summons being used as mounts, where 397 is the one that's pertaining to summoning and battling creatures. In regards to the direct impacts of both, Mueller reports, The 387 patent that was issued today covers a technique that Pocket Pair recently worked around, so there's no leverage Nintendo gains from that grant. The 397 poses a fundamental threat to creativity and innovation in the games industry. That question is not specific to Palworld, but to a large number of games that have already had that mechanic, as well as future releases that will have it. They break down that patent specifically in simple language, stating that 1. There must be a PC, console, or other computing device, and the game is stored on a drive or similar storage medium. 2. You can move a character in a virtual space. 3. You must be able to summon a character, they call it a sub-character, by which they mean it is not the player character, but for example, a little monster, such as a Pokemon, that the player has at its disposal. Then the logic branches out with items 4 and 5 being mutually exclusive scenarios before reuniting again at item 6. 4. This is about summoning a sub-character in a place where there is already another character that it will, when instructed to do so, fight. 5. This is an alternate scenario about summoning where the sub-character is at a position where there is no other character to fight immediately. 6. This is the final step about sending the sub-character in a direction and then letting an auto-battle ensue with another character. It is not clear whether this is even needed if one of the previous ones is executed, step number 4, where the sub-character will basically be thrown at another character. They finish by publishing what they believe to be the wider ramifications of this patent by saying that Nintendo's all-you-can-patent approach is enabled by the fact that some patent offices appear to be in a difficult position to find prior art, which typically exists in the form of other games rather than other patent documents. The industry at large will have to think about what to do, and it could be that some game companies will now step up their patenting activity as well. At some point, companies that lose market share may prioritize patent monetization, either by going out and collecting royalties directly or by assigning their patents to third parties. Licensing firms are often pejoratively called patent trolls that will do so. While not patent-related, Sony's trademark and copyright infringement lawsuit against Tencent in the Northern District of California also threatens to make games as a business more and more litigious, employing lawfare to prevent competitors from releasing or continuing to sell games or to force them to make changes to gameplay. Looking at the state of the industry, I think that this writer has it right. On the AAA side, we are seeing nothing but more stagnation. Games are getting worse every year. Customers are turning feral because of broken launches and predatory monetization. We have player bases that have less disposable income, fewer jobs, and AI breathing down their necks. The obvious answer would be to reassess, fix your quality, lower your prices, actually listen to your players, but that's not what these companies do. They don't pivot, they litigate, and that's what we're starting to see right now. This looks like the opening shot of a cataclysmic event. Instead of just making better games, these companies are just going to patent their mechanics. They're going to milk royalties from safe targets, and they're just going to sue the ones that they actually fear. I really hate how broad this mechanic is. The mechanic it describes, summoning a character and letting it fight another, is something that we have seen for decades in games like Final Fantasy, Shin Megami Tensei, Path of Exile, and countless other RPGs. Now, on paper, prior use would crush this in court. These games are safe. Nothing's going to happen to them, but that's not the point. The point is suppression. Most of these studios are not going to want to burn years or millions of dollars fighting Nintendo's lawyers. They're just going to avoid the mechanics entirely, which means we're going to see fewer games with fewer summoning systems, fewer creature collectors, and fewer experiments in design. The damage isn't in the courtroom, it's going to be a chilling effect across the entire industry. The bigger issue here, and honestly the most insidious, is how these patents are going to be enforced, because they're not about creating a level playing field or targeting every single game that has similar mechanics. They're just going to be used as weapons to be used selectively against whoever they think is posing a real threat. That's why Nintendo never bothered with games like Temtem or Koromon, because those games were small, they were niche, and they didn't really pose any danger to Pokemon. But Palworld, now that game is different, because 15 million sales in 1 month, 25 million players in the same window, that's Pokemon territory. Scarlet and Violet took 3 years to hit 26 million copies sold. Suddenly, Nintendo was not looking at some quirky indie game, they were staring down a competitor. I think as more of these companies jump on board, it's just going to create a cartel. These patents are not about innovation or protecting their IPs. This is about building a walled garden where the giants are going to leave themselves alone and then weaponize the law against anybody that's trying to climb the fence. Nintendo pulled the trigger first, but you already know that all these other guys are going to follow. It's going to become a standard. Every single AAA publisher is going to start patenting these basic mechanics, not to be able to use them, but just to keep everybody else from doing so. And then once that happens, the industry stops being about competing with creativity and starts being about competing with lawyers. And that really sucks because it's not just that we're going to see fewer experimental indies or fewer mid-tier studios that are daring to challenge some of these bigger players. It's just going to be that this industry itself is going to be rigged. It's going to be a cartel of companies that are too talent-starved and risk-averse to be able to win with their own ideas. So instead, they're just going to lock down the market through suppression. They don't want to improve. They don't have to improve. They just have to make sure that nobody else is allowed to. This is just so damn petty. And I don't think that people understand just how much damage this is going to do and what kind of patent war is going to ensue as a result of this. These guys have been losing money. They've been losing customers, and that's making them desperate. You have to think about this. These guys are so beholden to their shareholders that they have monetized us. They've monetized everything that wasn't nailed down, and now the only thing that's left is to monetize their own competition through royalties. That's what's going to happen. I was originally sitting here saying, why are these guys letting Nintendo get away with this? And then I realized they're all going to do it. If Nintendo can get away with patenting summoning mechanics, well, then you're going to see Xbox patent cover mechanics because of Gears of War. You're going to see Blizzard patent skill trees because of World of Warcraft and Diablo. You're going to see Ubisoft patent wall running or traversal mechanics. Nothing is going to be sacred at this point. And all this does is benefit them and does nothing for us. It ruins the industry for us because it means less games, less experimental games, less new games for us to be able to play because it's all designed to forcibly funnel us towards them. Our money goes to them and nobody else because they're the only ones that have that kind of experience we might be looking for. This is such a failure on the side of the US Patent Office. These guys are supposed to, it's part of their entire program to make sure that they are weighing these patents against whatever their future impacts on an industry could be. And I think in this case, and probably in the case of a lot of video games that we've seen, I don't think that they have any context on video games whatsoever. It's like the guy had brought up, it seems like these guys are looking to weigh it against other patents rather than weigh it against the actual art itself. And because these guys aren't playing video games, they don't really care. They probably saw, oh, it's Pokemon doing the Pokemon thing. Oh, of course this is theirs. Even though it's something that existed far before Pokemon ever did. I think it was Megami Tensei was the first game or something like that. There's probably something even before then. None of this represents video games. None of this represents the hobby or who these games are being made for. We've been written out of the equation entirely. And Nintendo isn't alone in this because everybody right now wants control of video games. We're seeing these activist groups, we're seeing politicians, we're seeing credit card companies, we're even seeing the platforms that are selling these games. All of them want to say in what games are made and how we can access them. Anytime there's a national tragedy or anything similar, especially if the assailant is young, video games are the first scapegoat. And it's happening again after the death of the political commentator Charlie Kirk. Platforms like Steam, Discord, and Twitch are all under investigation, with their executives being dragged before Congress to explain how their communities radicalized users. Helldivers 2 even got caught in the blast radius. A meme tied to the shooter was found at the scene. Their subreddit went into lockdown, and suddenly a co-op alien shooter is being dragged into a political firestorm. It doesn't matter what the reality is. If a gamer is involved, games themselves are going to become the target. Only a day before all this happened, GameSpot.com published an article written by Eddie Mockett titled RFK Cites Video Games as a Possible Cause for Real-World Gun Violence, where he writes, United States Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has announced that the National Institutes of Health are looking into a range of issues as it relates to what may contribute to gun violence in the United States. He also cited video games as a possible cause for real-world violence. The firearms question is a complex question. It's not an easy question, he said in response to a question from PBS about the government looking into mental health when it comes to gun violence. He called out a variety of factors that could contribute to an uptick in real-world violence, including dependency on psychiatric drugs, along with video games and social media. We are initiating studies that now look into the correlation and the potential connection between over-medicating our kids and this violence. He did not elaborate on video games, however. The writer then would go on to talk about various studies that have happened throughout the years, some independent studies that had confirmed that video games were the issue, yet Mockett would later write that a study from Oxford discovered no link between aggressive behavior in teenagers and the amount of time that they spent playing violent video games. Our findings suggest that researcher biases might have influenced previous studies on the topic and have distorted our understanding of the effects of video games, co-author Dr. Netta Weinstein from Cardiff University said. This study came years after published, vetted research that showed that there is no connection between violent video games and the increase in violent crimes. It has been studied, tested, and debunked for decades. Every single time these politicians drag video games into the conversation about violence, they do it with the exact same bag of tricks. Cherry pick studies that only support their narrative, they ignore the ones that don't, and they just lean on this assumption that because young people play video games that they must be to blame. But correlation is not causation. Millions of people play violent video games every single day across every single country on Earth. If there was a direct pipeline between Call of Duty and real-world violence, society would have collapsed years ago. And the research backs that up. Oxford University's study is one of the most comprehensive ones to date, and it found no link between violent video games and adolescent aggression. Not a weak link, not a complicated link. No link whatsoever. That's not even an outlier. There are dozens of peer-reviewed studies across psychology, sociology, and criminology that have shown the exact same thing. In fact, violent crime rates have actually gone down in the same decades that violent video games have gone mainstream, likely because they gave people an outlet and a hobby. But that doesn't stop these politicians from dragging games into every single tragedy, because truth doesn't matter. That's not what they want. They want the optics, and they want to make sure everybody believes that there are problems that only they can solve. And I don't see any of this as being any different than the activist groups that are going after games on cultural grounds. Groups like Collective Shout, who are campaigning to rip adult games off of Steam because they think somehow they are the root of misogyny and real-world crimes against women. It's the same playbook. Blame games for societal problems that you don't understand, then use that outrage as justification to censor, restrict, and control what other people can access and play. Whether it's politicians chasing headlines or activists just pushing their own morality onto everybody else, the goal is the exact same: to control the public and suppress art that they personally do not approve of. None of these groups actually engage with games. They don't play them. They don't understand the culture, the mechanics, the communities. They just see video games as an abstract threat that needs to be managed, and not as a medium with value and creativity and meaning. And that ignorance is incredibly dangerous, because it means that the people that are writing the rules and applying pressure are doing it from a place of total detachment. It's just control for control's sake: political control, moral control, financial control. The faces may change, but the impulse is still the same. Strip away independence, funnel everything through their own approval, and then make sure that games don't exist unless it's on their terms. That's not about protecting anyone. It's just about power. And that's the thing that I don't think a lot of these people, the corporations, the politicians, or the activists actually understand, is that they're telling themselves that they're fixing something, that they're protecting someone, or they're saving us from ourselves, but all they're really going to be doing is just poking the bear. Yes, there are some radicalized spaces on the internet, and yeah, something does need to be done about them, but when you have people who do not understand these spaces that are coming crashing into them, they're not going to fix the problem. They're just going to make it worse. Every time they tighten their grip, they're just going to tear away at the very communities that these games have built. They're going to bulldoze into spaces where people feel like they actually belong: guilds, Discord servers, Reddit forums, the kind of places that offer connection in a world that has never felt more isolated than ever. To them, those spaces are dangerous, unruly, or uncontrollable, but for millions of players, they're a lifeline. And I don't think it's just about belonging. I think this industry also represents opportunity. The games industry is one of the few creative fields where every single discipline is involved, and even a small team in a garage can turn an idea into something global. Games create jobs, they create technology that can spill into other sectors, they can inspire kids to learn how to code, to be able to make art or write their own stories. They have sparked lifelong careers and lifelong friendships. They have built entire economies for streamers, modders, and esports athletes, and yet the people who want to control it, whether it's Nintendo with their patents, politicians chasing headlines, or these moral crusaders, they see none of that. To them, games are just nothing but a liability, a scapegoat, or a product to be strip-mined. The silver lining that I can see in all of this is that every single time they try to crack down, they think that they're trying to make the industry safer, cleaner, or more manageable. All they're going to do is just drive players and developers to adapt. Creativity has always been forged in adversity. Indie developers have found ways to be able to thrive under a constant barrage of indie titles. Modders have been able to keep beloved games alive long after publishers have abandoned them. Fans have built entire genres from scraps that companies have left behind. The more outsiders that try to regulate, censor, or litigate, the more developers are just going to be able to force to innovate in those cracks that they can't close off. That's the thing that I think a lot of these groups are going to fail to understand, is that games have always thrived on resistance. We have survived moral panics, we've survived regulation scares, bankruptcies, layoffs, monopolies, and I'm sure that we're going to be able to survive this. I have a very strong feeling with how unstable both the economy and society has been over the past couple of years. We're going to be seeing some wide sweeping changes impact a lot of our spaces very soon. Spaces that have largely gone untouched for a very long time, but We've already seen age verification roll out on a lot of platforms. We've seen a lot of the laws that have gotten passed in the UK. We've seen how that stuff has then bled over into other countries as well. We've seen changes in Australia and other places too. And I think we're going to start seeing more changes like that in the future. And I think a lot of that stuff is largely unavoidable unless people actually vote against it. But I wish that people would look inward instead of outward. These politicians should be talking about the economy. They should be talking about education. They should be talking about destigmatizing, talking about how you feel rather than just slapping a label and a medication on yourself. We should be talking about the state of the job economy is what we should be talking about. All these companies that are out there that are replacing all of their workers with AI. Has anybody ever stopped to ask the question, what happens when you've gotten rid of all your employees, but now people don't have any money to actually buy your stuff? Or buy anything for that matter. I do think that there is a discussion to have on online extremism. I think that it is pretty, it's all over the place, to be honest with you. But a lot of that is largely stemming from an unstable economy. You have to look at those things to be able to fix everything else. You have a lot more problems. People have a lot more problems when they feel like they don't have a future. And I think that there's a lot of people that are out there today that feel like they don't have a future. And clamping down on our escapes, our hobbies, that's only going to cause more problems. I can definitely tell you that. The patent war is coming. I do know that for a fact. These companies have lost so much money over the last few years. They've lost so much to their competition. There's too much new competition. Things are just so, I don't think people really understand just how disruptive indie has been over the last couple of years. It is insane how many of their games have been selling, how many of their games have been selling, and how largely a lot of people are just kind of starting to scoot away from AAA. And that is just going to suck for them, because if they really lean into that, all that's going to do is just make them more dependent on what they're already doing, which isn't good. It's like what they're already doing isn't good. So focusing that and only doing that is only going to make things even worse. You need an ecosystem of ideas. You need people that are sharing ideas. You need to see what people do with the things that you create and then learn from that and then make better products in the future. That's how this industry started. That's how almost every industry has started. Something to keep in mind. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video with your friends, comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about the state of things. And man, that Pal World patent, that's not good. Anyway, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter. I'll be live today. Peace.
Family, 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 family.